It's the 6th of March 2010 and a couple of days into the 99th installment of the Davis Cup, the biggest national team tournament in men's tennis worldwide. Teams from all around the world compete for the huge prize pool of almost $10 million. At the same time, on the other side of the world, two men are sitting in tacky gaming chairs while clicking buttons on a keyboard and moving their mice in strange, erratic motions while looking at a bright computer screen. It's the grand finals between the two arch-rivals Shane Rafa Hendrickson, an American, versus the Russian Anton Kulersingov. The two players are debatably among the greatest arena shooters that has walked the earth. The championship, Intel Extreme Masters Season 4, is one of the biggest in the game for 2010, with a comparably minuscule prize pool of $20,000, with the first place getting a respectable amount of $10,000. The game they're playing is Quake Live, an arena shooter known for its rocket jumping and bunny hopping. It's an evolution of Quake, a game with a movement system built upon a glitch. So, let's start with my favorite glitch of all time, bunny hopping. Bunny hopping was discovered in Quake, where being airborne did not cause any speed loss and additional jumps could increase the player's speed towards the engine's limit. Since Half-Life is based on the Quake 1 engine, this movement glitch has been carried over to Gold Source, where strafing in the air, that's pressing A or D, is faster than going forward, which also makes climbing ladders laughably fast. The evolution of the Gold Source engine is simply called Source, and probably my favorite engine of all time. It also happens to be the home of my favorite tactical multiplayer FPS. Well, now that I think about it, it's probably my favorite overall multiplayer FPS of all time. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, also known as CSGO. CSGO is a Source game and has some bunny hopping and strafing shenanigans. Although it has been toned down significantly, it can still be used effectively in-game for a small, but definitely not useless advantage if you know how to utilize it. It can also look pretty cool. But how can this be fair? Well, first of all, it's hard to do and very unreliable. It gives the user an advantage, but at the same time, a disadvantage. It's fair. You might be moving at Mach 5, but in CS, moving and shooting is really not a thing. It's not accurate enough to be useful. Its real utility can be found, among other things such as jumping at places you shouldn't be, breaking timings. If you don't know what that is, I'll give you a short and dumbed down explanation. The terrorist and counter-terrorist, CT and T, spawn in set locations. This means you know roughly how far you can go before you should expect to meet another player. You might start to understand now why moving just a tad bit faster can be a pretty big advantage. You might think this is a tangent, and I would agree to a point, but what I'm trying to say is that bunny hopping is deep, not only mechanically, but it can also be used for smart things. It can also be used for stuff like this. There is another and much more funnier looking technique at that called run boosting. This one is debatably more useful while being a lot harder to execute. I say that because it takes two players and involves another glitch-like feature in the Source engine that is known as boosting, where one player stands on top of another. To perform a run boost, both players start running and the uppermost player jumps. The hard thing comes with the timing. The player will now fly with the momentum of both the players at once, zooming forward at great lengths and at high speeds. This can be used in many of the same ways a b-hop could, but with even more impact. But the fact that 1. It takes 2 players, and 2. That it has to be set up and requires great timing, makes it hard to use without a lot of practice or planning. Of course you can just go ahead and YOLO it, but that almost never works out the way you think it will. Now let's get away from the Source engine for just a minute and move into the greatest game of all time, Fortnite. One of the funnier glitches to be found in Fortnite is rocket riding. Simply put, you can ride the projectiles that the launcher fires. This is awesome. A hard to apply and niche way to traverse the map. A great glitch that became a feature. Good work, Epic. Fortnite also used to have the very controversial double pump, a technique popularized by the now retired professional player for TSM, Daequan. Using 2 pump shotguns you could shoot, switch shotguns and shoot again. So what made this technique so infamous? Well, it was basically like having a faster pump shotgun with double the ammo. But is that really a bad thing? I'll give you a great reason why, and an almost similarly awful reason, and why I can almost agree that it should have been removed. First of all, it was skillful. Not as hard to execute as something like bunny hopping, for example, but it was a part of the game. You offered up one of your slots in your limited inventory for a faster shotgun, a trade-off, just like bunny hopping in CS. It worked, it was the meta, and to be honest, it felt really good. It was a lot like Doom in the way that you can switch weapons immediately and fire, like some kind of a combo in a fighting game. Fortnite has a couple of random elements that make these potentially overpowered in an esports/serious environment. For example, random loot spawns. One player can drop down into a shack and get fully geared up with 2 shotguns instantly, while another, better player gets a pistol. The 2 fight and the worst player wins, only because of his or her gear. This is inherently unfair. The better player should be the one to win most of the time. But to be honest, the Battle Royale genre is very unfair, almost by design. Another reason why they may have been removed is their audience, which are, to be blunt, children, who can't really be expected to perform these advanced techniques, but then again, the building mechanic in that game is very deep and still in there, so this point can easily be debunked. Fortnite is made for kids, the same way that the platform party fighting game Super Smash Bros. Melee is, the next game we're going to talk about. Melee has, among other glitches, the wave dash. So, what is the wave dash, you may ask? Wow, that was exciting to say the least. But what is it used for? This is both a complicated and a simple question. So let's start slowly. Movement. It can be used, and I would argue is most used, to traverse the map. A form of micro-movement that doesn't turn you around and therefore also very useful, for example, baiting out a move from your opponent. So how do you wave dash? Well, it's quite simple. Air dodge into the ground at an angle to preserve the momentum of the air dodge. It requires some amount of timing, but other than that, it's really quite simple. But now, this is where it gets more complicated. It is also often used to reset your dash. The dash in Melee, and every other Smash game for that matter, is very useful because it's almost always the fastest way to move on the ground. But it has a big drawback. It takes a lot of time to turn around when you have entered the second part of your dash, your run. But by wave dashing, you can circumvent this issue entirely and speed up the game significantly. Now that we understand the significance of the wave dash, let's talk about the Shine. The greatest move in all of Melee. Why? To put it simply, it's the fastest move on the fastest character in a game where being fast and technical is a surefire way to become one of the best players in the world. That's why the Shine, which can be jumped out of and therefore wave dashed out of, is so significant. This is the Wave Shine. Melee is filled with stuff like this, and it's one of the reasons why it's so hard to learn. I would argue that without the wave dash, a glitch, Melee wouldn't be alive today. The wave dash makes Melee the fastest, the deepest, the most skillful, and in my opinion, the coolest Smash game of all time. And a lot of people would agree. 20 years later, and the latest big tournament, Smash Summit 11 that is still raking in over 100,000 live viewers, with a prize pool of $150,000. Okay, let's settle down and talk about Call of Duty, specifically Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3 has a futuristic movement system, including a jetpack-like boost, wall running, and most relevant for this video, the slide. The slide in Black Ops 3 works like this: run, or land from jumping after running, or land from wall running, and hold crouch to initiate a slide. The slide starts out fast and slows down. This initial speed boost is what we care about. If you slide on an edge, you get the boost without the slowdown. This is what I call an edge boost. The technique is one of many that can be used in the game to speed up its movement significantly. And that is why Black Ops 3's movement is probably the fastest, while still being precise. Call of Duty is well known, but this has hindered its design in a lot of ways. So small things like this really matter. Another pretty well-known technique in Call of Duty is the strafe jump. I won't talk about that one anymore because, well, it's COD, so who cares. So, developers out there, maybe look at your bug reports in another light. Maybe see that there was something missing in your game and that this glitch has fixed that. The movement in Source games were made infinitely better. The double pump made Fortnite a lot faster and more deadly while still being relatively hard to execute. The Black Ops 3 movement was made less brain dead and more skillful with the edge boost. Glitches. An inherent error in the engine or code are usually seen by programmers as something to be avoided, but the best developers know when to capitalize on a bug that makes their game more memorable. Just like with many movie scenes, sometimes the best moments just aren't in the script.